What's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and it feels like the first time in forever that we've done one of these, prediction or reaction type videos because we had been in the depths of our 2025 Best Picture Revisiting series. So if you haven't caught any of those episodes, it's been a ton of fun. Find the movie that you like the most or the guests that you like the most and give those a listen. But since we haven't really talked about anything since the Oscar nominations have dropped, there's been a few award shows. So why don't we give a quick little update here inside of this video?
Critics' Choice just happened this past weekend, as well as PGA, DGA. That has definitely shaped a lot of what's going on right now. Within the span of 24 hours, Anora went from "It's So Over" to "We're So Back." It's crazy to think that this was a movie that went from getting absolutely nothing at the Golden Globes, where we expected it to pick up at least screenplay, and then suddenly winning the Directors Guild, winning the Producers Guild. Critics' Choice, it doesn't really matter, but still, it won the Critics' Choice Award. There is momentum behind this movie. People clearly love it. And at this point, it seems like it is the undeniable frontrunner for Best Picture. If something had taken either DGA or PGA, we'd have some question marks. But now, what is the path for anything else? BAFTA is notoriously bad without PGA. The only time we see a BAFTA winner win Best Picture is with PGA. So whatever wins BAFTA, that's not going to convince me it's more powerful than Anora, unless Anora wins BAFTA, and then it's just unfucking deniable.
You say that it was so over to so in for Anora in 24 hours. I would say honestly in the span of 24 minutes, because when it lost original screenplay at Critics' Choice, I know in our Discord, a lot of people, myself included, Anora went from a potential Best Picture winner to winning 0 Oscars. Substance is coming for 2 above the line wins. And then we have the John Chu in director, but then we get to picture, and then Anora wins with nothing else at CCA. And then, like you said, the very next day, it wins 2 major guilds. It cements itself in the race. And at worst, right now, Anora is number 2 into the Best Picture race. Most likely, though, like you said, it's number 1 because
but what would be number 1 if at worst? What would be your number 1?
Well, that's the thing is nothing else can really be number 1 at this moment. Sure, you could say Amelia Perez or The Brutalist could win BAFTA and pair it with the Golden Globe. Oh, yeah. The issue is neither of those films are going to win SAG. Brutalist isn't nominated, and Amelia Perez most likely isn't going to win over there. So something like Wicked or Complete Unknown or Conclave, but Wicked can't win BAFTA. And Complete Unknown and Conclave are probably the 2 least likely to win at their respective bodies. And then the only other thing we have is WGA, where Conclave's ineligible, Amelia Perez is ineligible, Brutalist is ineligible, and the movies that are going to win the WGA are going to be Anora, and then a film that's only winning adapted because the main competition is not present. So Anora has to either be your 1 or 2. And if you have it number 2, I would really need to hear a strong reason why. Maybe you say well, Brutalist is going to win over at BAFTA, and it's going to win director, it's going to win actor, it's going to win supporting actor, it's going to win all these texts. But I'm going to be there's no traction to that currently. So yeah, Anora most likely is our Oscar winner. But in terms of BAFTA here, I really don't know what to predict, because before CCA, I was leaning more towards Amelia Perez versus The Brutalist. After CCA, I'm okay, well, clearly there's some sort of hesitation for voting for The Brutalist or Amelia Perez at more open bodies other than the Golden Globes. And then Anora went on to win 2 more. So Anora got basically everything it needed at BAFTA in terms of nominations. So it's seemingly they should fall in line, and we go from one of the most chaotic, wacky, open seasons that we've had in forever to a season where one film is looking destined to win at least 3, maybe more major guilds.
I want to jump in front of something because I can feel the comments coming already. Oh, Amelia Perez is losing because of the controversy. Oh, Brutalist is losing because of the AI controversy. No, we're going to stop that right now. What I believe is that those movies, the controversy didn't hurt them whatsoever. I think that they are on the exact trajectory they would be without the Gascon tweets, without the Brutalist AI stuff. It would be very easy to look back years from now and say, oh, those movies could have won, but they were killed by controversy. But when has controversy actually killed a movie? When has that actually happened? Because anytime we could say that something was killed by controversy, we have nothing to prove that. We have nothing to say that it actually happened. It's possible that the other movie was just liked more because we have seen controversial winners in the past. I keep going back to this. Green Book won Best Picture after the lead actor said the N-word at a screening, after it came out that the director had flashed his penis at multiple hundreds of, as he said, young women in auditions. And the writer of the movie tweeted out hateful things about Muslims. If a movie can't be killed by that controversy, I don't believe that controversy can actually kill a film. It can definitely embolden the people that hate a film, but it's not going to, if someone loves a movie and wants to vote for it, they're not going to be swayed by like, oh, but you can't vote for that. Did you see the tweets? In my opinion, right now, what we're seeing is just people don't like Emilia Perez or The Brutalist as much as they like Anora. That's not to say they hate those movies. Evidently, they don't. They got a lot of nominations. They still like them. They just like Anora more. And when we look back on this season, if Anora does emerge victorious, I don't want to hear anyone saying, oh, it only won because the other films got knocked out by controversy. No, if it wins, it's because people like it more. Let's talk some of these acting races right now, because right at this point, we've seen 4 people sweep so far, and it looks like they could continue that sweep. That is Adrien Brody, Demi Moore, Kieran Culkin, and Zoe Saldana. Do we think those 4 are going to continue on the sweep all the way to the Oscars, or do we think that there's some momentum brewing that could upset one of those 4?
The bodies that we've had so far, I would say the expected winner has won at those in retrospect. Demi Moore was a shock in the moment, but when you thought about it a little bit after with how well Substance did and going forward with it, repeating at CCA, winning over Mikey Madsen when Anora won the best film, it makes sense why she has won at both. Brody's film won drama over at the Golden Globes and was always going to be more of the critics' pick over Timothée Chalamet. And then you go to Culkin, who is expected to sweep the whole season. And then Saldana is the one that you can maybe throw an asterisk for, like, oh yeah, she won Globe. We were all expecting that. But at CCA, I know there were some people out there who thought Grande stood a better shot there, and maybe she was very close, but it still seemed like the critics' choice, whether better for worse, have some tendencies to try to go for the more Oscar-y performance. And also, you have to remember that Saldana wasn't ignored by critics groups, regional critics groups at whole. She was still top 3 in overall voting. It wasn't like those years where critics' choice plucks an actor just because they think they're winning an Oscar. Like, no, she had the critical support. In my opinion, the 4 winners that we've had so far all make sense. Now, when we get to some of these other award shows, SAG is where I think we can have the most switch ups. BAFTA, I think the best possibility for some upsets could be in the lead actor category if Chalamet, off the massive support for A Complete Unknown at that voting body, kind of comes in last minute to switch the tides. But I expect Saldana there. I expect Culkin there. I expect Demi Moore to win there as well. And SAG would be the same thing. I could see Timmy trumping over Brody once again, but I think the other 3 races are looking for clean sweeps the rest of the way, unless Mikey Madsen has a strong resurgence with Anora seemingly coming back. I would definitely understand when it happens, but I'm not going to predict it before, because then you're predicting something that has been proven wrong twice, when in those moments at the time of voting, Anora already seemed like the stronger film and it still lost out.
The only sweep that is guaranteed right now is Culkin. I legitimately cannot see anyone else winning anywhere else. And that's just because I don't see the competition in that category as being particularly strong. I don't see Guy Pearce being a win contender with The Brutalist performing as poorly as it has been generally. I don't see Edward Norton being a win contender with The Role. You know, the movie's strong, but the role doesn't feel like something that could upset Kieran Culkin with the momentum he has. But with that said, I do think Zoe Saldana can lose SAG to Ariana Grande. That is possible. I do think Adrien Brody can lose SAG and or BAFTA to Timothée Chalamet. And I do think that Demi Moore can lose the BAFTA to either Mikey Madsen or maybe someone else random, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I don't think any of them are safe, assured, except Culkin. That might be controversial. Going into the Oscar night, I think Zoe Saldana's pretty good. Kieran Culkin is definitely happening. But Brody and Moore, I'm not feeling like those are locks for the Oscars at this point. But we'll talk more about that in this BAFTA video because I'm definitely breaking from some of the sweepers at this point. Otherwise, I guess quick thoughts. Do we think the substance winning screenplay at Critics' Choice means anything? Do we think that can replicate itself either at BAFTA or at Oscars?
I would have said yes if Anora hadn't won picture and what Anora did the very next day. If, let's say, picture went to any other film besides Anora, it didn't even have to be the substance, and then PGA, DGA went the expected ways of DGA going with Brutalist, and maybe even PGA still went with Anora, I would say it would be more of a race because it was something I've always been contemplating ever since Demi Moore has cemented herself as the frontrunner and lead actress. Is like, well, if they like the film this much, screenplay is something that you can also tack along, and if Madsen's not winning, maybe the overall buzz for Anora is going down. But if Anora is looking like to be our best picture winner, I don't see how that wins best picture without screenplay coming along. I know you can say like, well, Baker can win director, but like you watch Anora, that's a screenplay movie.
It's a screenplay
Baker
movie.
would be added to it. It could be picture, screenplay, and director, but I don't see it being picture director with no screenplay.
So let's talk about director though, because Sean Baker winning the DGA was completely unexpected. Even if I were to have Anora being my pick at PGA, I wasn't. I was going Emilia Perez. If I were to put Anora at PGA, I would never in a million years have thought DGA win for Sean Baker. At this point, I do kind of still feel like that might not be infallible because it just doesn't feel like as much of a directorial achievement as something like Brady Corbet, which we think of as like the stereotypical ambitious direction. While Sean Baker's work is much more subdued, I feel like there is an angle, possibly, that DGA voted in a way where they were like, we just like this movie most. And I wonder if, given a choice at the Oscars, if they would split Anora Best Picture, Brutalist Best Director. If Brady Corbet wins the BAFTA, I will probably put him in at the Oscars for Best Director. If anyone else, not even just Sean Baker, if anyone but Brady Corbet wins the BAFTA, if Brutalist underperforms at BAFTA, I will put Sean Baker in at the Oscars because the DGA link is brilliant. I think they've only missed like 4 or 5 times in history.
In a split season, you default to DGA, and that's looking like what we can get here because I think there's a shot where we have 3 different winners at 3 major directing precursors.
Just fact checking myself, it's been 8 times that the winner of DGA has not gone on to win the Oscar, and that is since 1948. The last one was Sam Mendes winning both PGA and DGA, and then Parasite winning. But anyways, let's jump into these BAFTA predictions. Enough with Oscars. We'll probably still reference back to the Oscars every once in a while, but let's move to Best Film, where I'm currently predicting The Brutalist to win. Brutalist has been underperforming everywhere that we could possibly imagine it to. But BAFTA is one of those places where, like we said in our Critics' Choice video with Anora, if it can't win here, where can it win? If The Brutalist can't win BAFTA, where can it win? BAFTA is so perfectly tailored to a movie like this. They love ambitious works. They love films that make you think real deeply. And this is often why we see that split between BAFTA and the Oscars. The Oscars love films that you watch with your heart. The BAFTAs love films that you watch with your brain. The Brutalist is a film that makes you think. There's a chance that Brutalist just cleans up at the BAFTAs and still underperforms severely at the Oscars.
There's the potential for The Brutalist just to clean up at the BAFTAs. And I think there's honestly 2 routes for it to go. It cleans up, or it could maybe even blank at the BAFTA. I don't think we'll find a world where it's just Brody or it's just Corbet or it's just cinematography. I feel like it's going to win 3. It's going to win picture. It's going to win another tech. A lot of the reasons why you were saying pro Brutalist was my reasoning before these past few days of being pro Emilia Perez. It is that bold swing. It's a very tech heavy movie where they could just overtly shower it like All Quiet on the Western Front, and they're the really only guild and precursor to do so. The issue with Emilia Perez is the voting for the 3 things that just happened was all before the controversy started. I know the controversy doesn't matter at large, but that was a chance for it to build momentum. And the fact that it went 0 for 3, it didn't win any of those prizes. Its biggest prize was what it's won all season long of Zoe Saldana over in supporting actress. It didn't add anything new to its name. BAFTA voting is ongoing at this moment. I think it just closed, actually. There was nothing new to add to the conversation to one up Amelia Perez. You could say, no, it wasn't the front runner at any of those. Of course, it didn't win, but I think there was also a fair reason to think it should have won at least surprise and something over this past weekend, and it didn't. I am just going to fall into a year where BAFTA aligns with the Oscar, and I think I'm going to predict Anora. You can call that safe, you can call that a crazy swing, but I don't feel great about predicting Amelia Perez anymore after it not winning anything major these last few days, and I've just never personally been on the Brutalist train for a picture win. I know that bit me in the butt at Golden Globes. Maybe it does here again at the BAFTA.
What you're saying with Amelia Perez, I think, can't be emphasized enough. It lost without the controversy. I don't think that the Brits, Europeans, don't give a shit about controversy. Amelia Perez is not going to lose because of the controversy. It's going to lose because they like Anora and The Brutalist more. We thought maybe the momentum might be there, but it has proven it's not there. I do think it comes down to Brutalist, Anora, dark horse of Amelia Perez. If it's Anora, then it's just like, holy shit, we can pack up everything. It's done. But that's why I don't think this season's going to be simple like that. I think we're going to get that Brutalist shakeup.
Amelia Perez, the Brutalist, they won Golden Globe. They have something going into their corner, but BAFTA rarely goes for a film that doesn't have at least one major precursor. And if you want to use the Golden Globe as your one major precursor, you have to, excluding All Quiet on the Western Front, because that was just an insane anomaly. You gotta go all the way back to Atonement. Everything else in that time has at least one either SAG, a PGA, DGA, WGA. That's as far as you got to go back.
It's crazy to look at all of the films above and see just Best Picture loss after Best Picture loss after Best Picture loss. That stretch before Nomadland is just brutal. 1917, Roma, Three Billboards, La La Land, Revenant, Boyhood. That's brutal.
I mean, maybe because we said SAG as a precursor, maybe it is Amelia Perez or Conclave or Complete Unknown, and they win SAG the next week and we have a battle. That's not something I'm willing to really go out on the limb for, at least at this moment. So I'm going with Anora. Matt has Brutalist.
So let's go over to the directing category. This is Brady Corbet's Last Stand. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, this is the place that you would absolutely expect Brady Corbet to take it. And if he can't do it here, then goddamn, what happened? With that said, I'm looking at this category every single year, except for 2022 when Edward Berger won. It has lined up with the DGA. The last time that they broke away from a DGA BAFTA correlation in Best Director was 2014, when Richard Linklater took the BAFTA for Best Director and Alejandro González Iñárritu won the DGA award. Every other year, again, except 2022, for All Quiet, every other year it has been a matchup between the DGA and the BAFTA Best Director. So I'm sitting here predicting Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, but that might not be the wise thing to do. It might just be a sweep at this point for Sean Baker.
I will give you this caveat, though. Those two examples that you gave of Edward Berger and of Richard Linklater, their films also won in the Best Film category. So they may have broken the DGA stat, but their film also won in that major category. And you do have Brutalist over there. So it would fall in line with the past previous exceptions to the DGA correlation.
I'm sticking to my guns. I've had my reasoning for The Brutalist really doing an above the line sweep at the BAFTAs. I've felt that for quite some time. I don't want to react so quickly as to say, Sean Baker just won these two, he has to win BAFTA too. Because I don't believe that Anora is really a BAFTA type film.
That's my concern as well. That's why I've had Amelia Perez for so long, and with The Brutalist being my alternative, I just don't feel like there's the passion for those films at this moment. I would say if one of them were to overtake, it would be Brutalist. It's just a hard thing with BAFTA because they're such a unique and distinctive voting body. They clearly don't mind going out on their own terms and being the exception to the rule of award season. If you aren't going with Anora like I am, I think Brutalist, which you are, is the correct way to go.
The lead actress category, I'm going to catch a little bit of heat right here because
I think I am too.
I think that there's three possible winners. Obviously, Demi Moore continue the sweep. However, we could also see them break from that here because in previous years, BAFTA doesn't go for narratives. When you have a choice between someone who has a really great narrative and someone who just has been giving a kick-ass performance, doesn't really have a narrative around why they should win, they go with the one that just has the kick-ass performance. They don't care about that narrative behind it. Cate Blanchett taking it for Tar over Michelle Yeoh for Everything Ever All at Once. 2020, Frances Frances McDormand, this was the one place that she showed strength, which secured her the Oscar. Before that, Olivia Colman, The Favorite, another great example of someone who just had a kick-ass performance, didn't need a narrative, beat Glenn Close because her performance was that good. And here, maybe it's unwise because after predicting Mike Madison for every award, you gotta stop at some point and say, maybe this just isn't happening. But if there's one place that I think could go Mikey Madison, it would be here at BAFTA. Her performance just kicks that much ass. I think that she is good enough to win. Now, maybe if I'm going Mikey Madison, I should have Best Film, Anora, Best Director, Anora. But I'm just feeling this could be Mikey's shot. And if not that, I could also see an avenue for Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who, again, just kicks enough ass that she can beat the other two frontrunners in this category. If Demi Moore wins here, she's locked. She sweeps all the way to the Oscar. If Mikey Madison wins here, I think she's winning the Oscar with a slight chance of Demi Moore taking it. But if Marianne Jean-Baptiste wins here, that shows me that there might not be enough industry love for either Demi Moore or Mikey Madison. And that's the case that we'd get a Fernanda Torres win.
There's a lot of people out there that would love that last option. But I mean, just looking through these past winners, to your point, they do love the performance. They like the showiness. They like when they're loud. And they especially like when they've been around the block for a little bit. And that's my one caveat with Mikey Madison right now is all these examples of when they stray away from the Oscar winner. It's because they are the performance from someone who they know. That's where I'm having a little trouble with Madsen. But at the same time, I have an Anora winning picture. I have a winning director. Maybe it should win this award. I'm going with Demi Moore at this moment. I think that she is just going to go on to sweep. To your first point there of you got to stop predicting Madsen at some point. She's seen destined for Globe. She's seen destined for CCA. Came up short at both of those bodies. And one of those bodies, in fact, even gave Anora the Best Picture prize. So maybe it's not wise here because she doesn't match up a lot with these previous winners. I think the youth aspect to Madsen might withhold her here because when the BAFTA does go for younger performance in this category, they're usually sweepers or near sweepers.
You know what? I'm going to go back on my word in the previous two categories because I do feel strongly about Mikey Madison. I am going to put Anora at number 1 in Best Picture and Best Director. If I want to see Mikey Madison win the Oscar, I think it needs to happen at BAFTA. And if it happens at BAFTA, it would only happen because it wins Best Picture, Director, Actress, and Screenplay. It would need to essentially sweep.
Anora sweep at BAFTA. I wonder where our original screenplay category will go, but before we get there, we got to move over to a controversial category, you could say, Best Leading Actor at the BAFTA Awards, because here is where they go astray sometimes. People will always wanted BAFTA to step up for their performance, to stop these biopics or stop these Hollywood machine type movies. I mean, there was Will Smith winning over Benedict Cumberbatch. There was Joaquin Phoenix winning for Joker. There was Rami Malek winning for Bohemian Rhapsody, over so many more BAFTA core type performances. And what BAFTA shows me often is they, just like in the leading actress category, they like the over-the-top showy stuff they eat up every time around. And this is the category too that often has a parallel over to that casting category. Again, that's a brand new category. Stats are meant to be broken. It won't happen every year. We saw the SAG Ensemble stat break for that category in terms of nominations. I'm holding on to that stat in terms of a win, and that's why I have Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown. BAFTA show they love this movie. I think this film is peaking at the right time in terms of British audiences. It's doing solid box office. Timmy's been campaigning over there, and I mean, if I had Brutalist underperforming with picture, with director, it wouldn't make sense for Brody to also win here at BAFTA. I know I did that over at the Critics' Choice, but I have Chalamet here, and maybe I'm completely off basis. And like you said over there for Mikey Madsen, eventually got to know when to not pick him. I picked him at Globes. He lost there, but I'm holding him here. I'm holding him at SAG, and I think we'll have a battle for the Oscars.
If Timothée Chalamet wins somewhere from now to the Oscar, I don't think it's BAFTA. I do feel like Adrian Brody has this one. I do have the casting correlation with a BAFTA win, but it's for Anora. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But I'm going with Adrian Brody. There's a chance of Timothée Chalamet, but I think there's as much of a chance of like Ralph Fiennes upsetting here. Adrian Brody's pretty far out front for this one. I just don't see the angle. I mean, maybe you could say that A Complete Unknown massively overperformed here with nominations, but Brody has shown that even in places where The Brutalist has lost, at the Critics' Choice Awards, for example, it lost picture, it lost director, it lost cinematography and score even, and it still won Best Actor for Adrian Brody. I don't think this would be the place that his sweep is ended.
That's a very fair point about Brutalist underperforming at CCA, but Brody still comes along. I never really thought Chalamet had a shot there. I would honestly say the number two over at CCA. As odd as it sounds, probably was Coleman Domingo. He was the critics' frontrunner in terms of regionals. It's just that film doesn't really have the passion, at least at the time of voting. It would be a huge surprise to me if Brody lost over there. I do think this is the last stand, because even if Timmy goes on to win SAG, that's after voting's closed. People won't know about it. He will start the narrative comeback. And maybe this is not the year, and maybe it is next year for Marty Supreme. I still feel like there is something with that performance left to be awarded in terms of this award season. Over in supporting actress, this is a category where BAFTA does not care. If there is a sweeper, they are sweeping here. Exceptions are if the person isn't nominated back, like in 2018, where Regina King did not end up winning. So that's why I have Zoe Saldana. I don't, like we said at the top of this episode, BAFTA won't care about any controversy. Grande was never going to win the BAFTA, even if she had won Critics' Choice, even if she had one Golden Globe. This was always going to be a Zoe Saldana win. And I was always very weirded out by people who said, like, oh yeah, Rossellini's winning the BAFTA, Felicity Jones is winning the BAFTA. It's like, why would the BAFTA go from them? They have Saldana. This is such a BAFTA core supporting actress type performance.
It's such a BAFTA core performance, and Emilia Perez is still such a BAFTA type movie. Even though we don't have it winning picture, even though we don't have it winning those big awards, they clearly like this movie a lot. And again, I don't believe the controversy is changing anything about people who like this movie. They're going to keep liking it, and Zoe Saldana is going to win this award no matter what. I don't think that any cope from the internet about this movie dying because of some tweets, I don't think that's going to change Zoe Saldana. Even at the Critics' Choice Awards, there was a lot of applause for Zoe Saldana. There was clear enthusiasm for her winning.
So supporting actor, this is probably be our shortest category of this entire video. Kieran Culkin, here's your award.
Lock it up. Throw away the key.
And I know, we've had this channel for a few years now. We kind of say the same thing for the Ke Huy Quan year, but I think there's a major asterisk you can use for Ke Huy Quan that you can't use for Kieran Culkin. Here, especially even more so than that year, there is no number two, even in terms of a film. Like that year, the Banshees boys were still very prominent and at least known actors, especially over with the BAFTA. Who would you even pick as the number two? Guy Pearce?
Guy Pearce, especially if we think that the BAFTAs are really going to love The Brutalist. Ed Norton could also do it because they also clearly like a complete unknown. I think it's dishonest to say in retrospect that we could identify a second place in supporting actor, because I wouldn't have thought Barry Keoghan. If I were to pick a Banshees boy at that time, I would have thought it was Brendan Gleeson. I would have there's too. No chance I would have said, oh, if there's an upset, it's Barry Keoghan.
That was more of my point, is there was clearly an anti-everything everywhere that year at the BAFTAs, and they seemingly did enjoy Banshees overall. You had two actors to pick from. Again, not the one I thought they would have picked from, but when it happened, maybe I'm misremembering. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense if you're really anti-everything everywhere. But if I had to throw another name out here, I would have liked to see the film do a little bit better. But like Jeremy Strong from The Apprentice has its supporters. Nothing's happening besides Culkin. It's just Culkin's.
It's Culkin with like maybe a 2% chance of something crazy happening. It makes no sense to predict that. This is one where you just go with the easy answer because it's probably right. Kieran Culkin has just steamrolled so far. Absolutely steamrolled. I suppose you could say the same thing about Demi Moore, but Kieran Culkin's performance feels more typically like what the BAFTAs would reward.
This next category, though, of original screenplay, BAFTAs kind of like to do their own thing here. Looking at some previous winners, like they did Banshees over Everything Everywhere. They did Licorice Pizza over Belfast. They aren't set in stone with what the Oscars end up having to do. And usually when a major upset happens, it's just because they don't really love the other film. And that's why I would have said before this past weekend, Substance, my pick for BAFTA original screenplay. But if I have an Anora winning picture, it's going to win screenplay.
They also typically just go with like the artsier film, Banshees versus Everything Everywhere. Yeah, it makes sense for BAFTA to go Banshees over Everything Everywhere. Licorice Pizza over Belfast. I mean, Belfast is a British film, but it's also much more typically like twee sentimentality. When they do split from what the Oscars do, 2018, they went The Favorite over Green Book. That's another great example. Or doing Three Billboards over Get Out. It's because the screenplay is styled more in a way that the BAFTA responds to. And so I do think Anora makes sense as a win here. And if it wasn't Anora, I don't think it would be The Substance. I think they'd go to The Brutalist. Over an adapted screenplay, this is one where I think it's pretty damn easy to say what's winning here. It's Conclave. Conclave has been the screenplay juggernaut of the season, taking the Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, and it feels right to win here as well. A Complete Unknown doesn't fit the winner more than Conclave does. Nickel Boys, Sing Sing, Amelia Perez, they don't fit the winner more. I think Conclave just takes this one easy.
And then when years of sweeps over here in the adapted screenplay category, they don't usually break those. Like last year, they still did American Fiction, and that's the most un-BAFTA core Hollywood-centric type movie, and they just did it over Oppenheimer, a film that swept from top to bottom. So like if Conclave loses here, there's major questions to be had, but Conclave won the Globe, it won CCA, it's going to win the BAFTA, it would win WGA if it was there, and it's going to win the Oscar.
Now, over in casting, I know that you were saying A Complete Unknown is your pick. I've got Anora because I'm riding with Mikey Madison. I do think, as normally we do see this, we have to give this to someone who's going to be an acting winner. If you're picking Anora, you should probably have Mikey Madison. If you're picking Complete Unknown, you should probably have Timothée Chalamet. If you're picking Conclave, you should probably have Ralph Fiennes. If you're going Apprentice, then call that bold upset for Jeremy Strong in supporting actor. If you're going with one of those movies for an acting win, you got to put that movie in casting.
I would say the only other possibility is if you want to call the stats breaking here, because this is a rather new category, Kneecap would be the one to go because it is casting. It would be a bold swing. And if you're going to do that, might as well just go with one of the bigger, more acclaimed films that are in the Best Picture category more so than Kneecap.
And to be fair, the stat has kind of broken, which is 2020 Rock's winning casting and Bucky Becray not winning an acting award. But she did win the Rising Star Award, if I'm remembering correctly. So you could still say that whoever wins the casting is going to win some honor for one of the actors later on in the show. But that said, man, Kneecap still weird nomination to give a movie a casting award when they just cast the real people as their movie counterparts.
It's the whole Sing Sing debate. Ensemble prizes, sure. Casting, you can have that conversation.
But I mean, the thing with Sing Sing, I suppose, is they had to choose which of the real people were going to play themselves and which of them were going to be replaced with bigger actors. Clarence Macklin plays himself, but Coleman Domingo plays Divine G. How do we decide who gets to stay and who goes? But Kneecap, it's just, here's the band, they're in the movie. Let's talk British film here. If something's in Best Film, we can probably imagine that it's going to win Best British Film. It's easy to say Conclave is winning this, but there definitely is a chance for Kneecap if we were to see it win that casting prize, if we were to see it take something else like, for example, international feature or editing, something like that. Really, sometimes the easiest answer is the correct one, and I think it's going to be Conclave.
Throughout BAFTA's history in this category, they tend to do what you expect. And last year is, I know you could say like, well, Poor Things was there, but Zone of Interest was the Brits' submission to the Oscars. There's no reason why they would not pick that. And like you go before that, and it was Banshees, it was Belfast, it was Promising Young Woman, 1917, The Favorite, Three Billboards. These are the biggest films in all the categories. The last thing to go back to a film that wasn't in the best film category or with Zone of Interest was 2016. But again, that year, none of these films made their final five.
British debut, though. This is a place where it's easy to go for Kneecap. Spread the wealth a little bit. Why go Kneecap in Best British Film when you can vote for it in Best British Debut?
I agree that it probably takes it hands down. Looking at some of the past winners, though, like last year, Earth Mama won over How to Have Sex, which I don't recall Earth Mama being in the British film category. Could be wrong. But like the year before that was After Sun, The Harder They Fall. So like they usually go for the biggest name movie. But I mean, last year has a little bone to throw because How to Have Sex was a film that got multiple nominations at the BAFTA Awards and still did not take away this prize. I would still go Kneecap just because of how much love it got. Because Kneecap had like 5 or 6 nominations. How to Have Sex at most had like 3.
It is interesting looking back. Like I'm noticing For Sama in 2019 got multiple nominations at the BAFTAs and still lost this category to a film called Bait, which I've never heard of. Looking back further, there's definitely been quite a few movies that have lost the BAFTA for Best Directorial Debut that you would not expect. Like Ex Machina lost to Thebe.
When those films lose, they're losing the films that you don't really know much about. So it's not even smart to have like Monkey Man or like Santosh as your alternatives because those films have a little bit of traction. It would make sense for like Horde or Sister Midnight to be the surprising upset. But again, bold swing to do that. Kneecap did so well. It's hard to predict against that. Same thing with Conclave over in British film. The reason why I think Poor Things lost to Zone was one, the submission to the Oscars, but also There are so many other places to vote for poor things. You would be fine just passing up over here. While Zone, the people who love that movie, we're going to always put it at number one.
Anyways, let's move to non-English language film, where I think it would be pretty tempting for people to not put Emilia Perez here, but I think that's wrong. It's just going to be Emilia Perez.
Now let's entertain it. It's going to be Amelia Perez, but if it wasn't, is it I'm Still Here?
If it wasn't, it's All We Imagine Is Light or Kneecap. I don't think I'm Still Here does it. They didn't do Fernanda Torres here. It has the momentum, but it doesn't have the nominations. But it's just Emilia Perez. It's just Emilia Perez. It's nominated for Best Film. It's winning.
Now, is Doc just No Other Land, or is Doc going astray here at the BAFTAs?
I think it's just No Other Land, but I do think that there's a possibility that we get a shakeup like Superman, like Will and Harper. I don't think Daughters or Black Box would do it, but I think we could see one of the celebrity docs win. I'm not going to predict that. It is just No Other Land, but if one of the celebrity docs were to win, which is not unprecedented at the BAFTAs, here is where we see is an industry award voting with the whole body, not just with a documentary branch. Are they going to be sympathetic enough to Palestine to give No Other Land an award? This is really the first time we're going to see that proven. So if it's something else, then I can't predict No Other Land for the Oscar, but I have no reason to not predict No Other Land right now.
The last time the BAFTA has not correlated with the Oscars was back in 2019, where For Sama took over American Factory. So that would be your last frame of reference if you are predicting No Other Land to win the Oscar, but not to win here. But if you think No Other Land is going to come up short there, might as well take your swing of the pick, and that could be something that's not nominated for the Oscars, like Superman, or it could be something that is nominated, like Black Box Diaries. But I think it's just No Other Land. So this next category, we're kind of going to split this into two because it's Best Animated Film, and I think by extension there is Best Family Film, or whatever they're calling it, because there's this notion online that Wallace and Gromit, every time it's at the BAFTAs, it's winning something. And I would say it's winning family film, and animated film can go to whether it's Flow or it's Wild Robot.
I'm not even going to talk about children family film because I think you're right, probably Wallace and Gromit, but animated film, Flow. If Flow doesn't win here, it's done for the Oscar. Flow's entire path to the Oscar hinges on Golden Globe and BAFTA. And it has the Golden Globe. It just needs the BAFTA. That's the package that we saw last year for The Boy and the Heron. Both award shows were much more willing to go for something a little bit more artsy than what might have been expected of the big award shows, which is you just go for an American studio film like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse or The Wild Robot. So if they went Boy and the Heron last year, I do think that they have it in them to go for Flow this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Wild Robot. Whatever wins this wins the Oscar.
I completely agree. I have Flow as my winner here for the same reasons. It's its path to the Oscars. If it loses, even if it loses to Wallace and Gromit over The Wild Robot, it would kind of kill Flow. The Wild Robot just dominated the Annies with an insane haul. It won like, what was it, 9, 10 awards? It won everything it was nominated for. Crazy. But apparently that happens to the Annies all the time. Flow needs this. This plus Golden Globe puts up a fight. Still, it could have both and lose to The Wild Robot. Both films did great with Oscar nominations. So if Flow loses here, regardless, it's not a great sign.
In the Best Cinematography category, this is one that I feel like is maybe safe for The Brutalist, but that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel 100% right. It's hard to say anything is completely safe in a tech category where we haven't really seen precursors yet, other than the Critics' Choice Awards, which are fake precursors. But The Brutalist is out front.
BSC went for Brutalist.
Okay, I didn't realize that BSC had actually happened. So if they went Brutalist, then I'm going Brutalist for BAFTA. That said, I am not going to put the possibility of Emilia Perez or Nosferatu off the table.
Brutalist is what I had for CCA, especially after the BSC win. It losing there, I think, is more of a sign of CCA at large wasn't really vibing with that movie. For a while, I had Dune Part 2. I figured if it can overcome the hurdle of the nomination, it could get the win. But at both bodies, at BAFTA and at the Oscars, it underperformed with nominations, ones that should have been assured. So I can't really go there. And I know Nosferatu did great. And it's one I really want to predict here, but I don't think Nosferatu is winning the Oscar. So I kind of have to default to BSC. And I don't have the stats on hand, but I'm pretty sure BSC and BAFTA are probably tight like that.
In the editing category, this is one that, I mean, if I have Anora in Best Film, if I have Anora in Best Director and Casting and Actress and Screenplay, I should probably have Anora here. But I don't. I have Emilia Perez winning editing because I'm expecting that to go on to the Oscar. But this is a category where I could see it go really any of 4 ways. It could go Emilia Perez, could go Anora, could go Conclave, and if one of those wins, it's winning the Oscar. But then if it were to go Dune or Kneecap, that would mean that I'd look towards something like Wicked winning at the Oscar, which would be a little bit crazy. But right now, I guess if I were to narrow it down, it's Emilia Perez or Anora. Anything else would be a big shock. And I'm leaning Emilia Perez right now, despite my sweep for Anora everywhere else.
We go back to 2021. Dune was there, and Dune lost to No Time to Die, a film that was not in picture and did not win the Oscar. So this is a category that BAFTA hasn't already done once before. So maybe it makes sense for them to go Dune again, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm going Conclave. I don't
Okay.
care. It's what I had for the Oscar, and I don't have a reason to back off of it yet. Until it loses a real precursor, I'm going to keep it.
You had me going there for a second. I was about to say, riddle me this, Batman. Why the hell would Dune win this time if it's performing worse in every other category? But I'm glad you're not doing Dune. That would have been crazy. Conclave does make sense. And it's one of those things, just like how I am with Emilia Perez, I'm going to predict it for editing until it loses.
Both of those films, Conclave and Emilia Perez, are feats of editing, regardless if you love the movies at all. You have to notice the flashy editing, and it fits into something that doesn't need to be in an overall sweeper. It's a type of film that can win editing as its main recognition. I know obviously Conclave has screenplay, Emilia has Zoe. This is more flashier, it's more in your face. And even times where BAFTA doesn't give it to a film that they overtly love, they are feats of editing. No Time to Die. And then a lot of the other times they do give it to, I guess, the eventual Oscar winner, but when they don't, it's usually the overtly showy type editing.
Dude, Jesus Christ, if Anora wins Best Editing, it's steamrolling. Sean Baker will win 4 Oscars.
Production design, this is a real test because last year we had Barbie versus Poor Things. Barbie was the more blockbustery type film. It had pretty sets, pretty costumes. It won early precursors, but BAFTA is where the tide switched over to Poor Things, which was the much more artistic and highbrow type film. The biggest difference this year, Wicked's competition, I guess, is Brutalist in production design, and then in costumes is who knows? So it's not one film versus the other. It's one film versus one in each spot. And I'm assuming, we don't have it yet, but I'm assuming Wicked would win at the Production Designers Guild as well as the Costume Designer Guild, something that Barbie lost in last year.
There's definitely a chance, though, that they go with Brutalist in production design, especially if the Brutalist were to have basically an above-the-line sweep, if it were to win picture, director, actor, if it were to go on to some of those below-the-lines, too, with score, with cinematography. Production design wouldn't be that far off of believable. Something worth noting, last year, this is the first place we saw the Zone of Interest surprise over Oppenheimer in Best Sound. If they were to do something that would topple Wicked in production design and go with the Brutalist, it would first happen here.
I just think that the production design for this film is just too much to overcome. But I mean, Oppenheimer, Best Picture sweeper, lost last year.
Wouldn't you have thought that Barbie was too much to overcome in those categories, even if BAFTAs didn't love it as much, which they don't with Wicked, evidently?
If last year that the Guild went with Barbie over Poor Things, I would have been shocked with the fact that the Guild went with Poor Things.
I just think that generally Wicked's not safe. I think it's safe for a costume win at BAFTA, but I think production design is still a little bit vulnerable. But it would be a little bit too much, since I'm predicting Brutalist to underperform elsewhere, for me to say that Brutalist would win production design.
I do agree, though, if Wicked does not win, it is Brutalist as the alternative. And then in costumes, I guess I would say Nosferatu, considering that it won the Guild and it did so well at all of its potential nominations here.
Could also be Conclave as a potential winner, but I feel like it is just Wicked for costumes.
Makeup and hairstyling is just substance, and same for visual effects. It's just Dune. Nothing else is happening in those categories.
And sound even. Sound is just Dune. Those three feel as locked up can be.
I'm not predicting an upset.
Would you say
sound.
Wicked might happen for sound?
I'd honestly say Substance would be number 2. The fact that it's in the category has a chance for a weird upset. I'm not predicting it. I think Dune is just winning that award. But I would put Substance as number 2 over Wicked. Well, that's going to bring us to our final category here for the BAFTAs. And honestly, this is probably the most important category at the BAFTAs because Matt and myself have been longtime proclaimers. If Challengers is in your category, it is winning your award. We've seen that at Golden Globes. We've seen that at CCA. And now Challengers is not in any more score categories for the rest of the season. What do we have, though? We have Brutalist. We have Conclave. Conclave, we have Amelia Perez, we have The Wild Robot, and the Nosferatu. It's just there at the fifth slot. Those other four are in both of our final things. Wild Robot can probably throw that one out. So we have a three-horse race. Amelia, Brutalist, Conclave, and I feel like we're going to have different winners here, and I feel like the internet at large will have a different winner. So it'll be three people kind of fighting against each other.
That is interesting because I bet I'm Amelia Perez, you're Conclave,
Oh,
the internet is
I'm
the Brutalist.
I'm also Amelia Perez.
Hey, we're both Amelia
So
Perez.
no one has Conclave here, and watch that be Conclave then.
It could be Conclave, but look, I think Amelia Perez has enough around the fact that it's a musical. The whole thing is music. I know a lot of people talk about the music in this movie like it's all shit. I think the music's damn good for Amelia Perez. They're using a lot of cool sounds that you wouldn't expect. That said, I think The Brutalist is very possible, and whatever wins this wins the Oscar.
What won score in 2018, like at the Oscars?
Black Panther.
Because I'm
Here,
looking through
was
the
it First Man or was it?
No, it was A Star Is Born.
That doesn't have a score, but that feels like analogous to Amelia Perez because it's songs. You know, they like the songs, they like the underscoring of those songs.
I don't know the last time that besides A Star Is Born, which obviously wasn't eligible for the Oscar, that the BAFTA didn't correlate with the Oscar winner. Oppenheimer, All Quiet, Dune, Soul, Joker, Shape of Water, La La Land, Hateful Eight, Budapest Hotel, Gravity, and I guess it would be Skyfall in 2012.
I would love for it to be The Brutalist. Would love for it. That's my favorite score of the entire decade. But I have doubts on The Brutalist score.
Let's do Rising Star. Why not? This is a fake award. We give the fake awards attention at the Golden Globes. Let's do it here. The Brits voted this, guys. Mikey Madsen, she's probably not going to win, but if she does win, would be interesting.
They never go for the non-Brits. We try every year and we say, oh, well, that person's winning. That person's nominated. They have to win. But last year, they had the choice to go for Jacob Elordi or Iowa Debris, and they went with Mia McKenna Bruce. In 2021, they could have gone with Ariana DeBose, nominated and won. They also could have gone with Cody Smith McPhee, who was nominated, and they went with Lashana Lynch. You can keep going back farther and farther. They don't go for Americans. It is always Brits. Brits, 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 Brits. The last time that a non-Brit won this award, I believe, was Kristen Stewart in 2009. Everyone else that I recognize the name of, at least.
What did Kristen Stewart do? Because they wouldn't have done her for Twilight.
I don't know, man. I don't know what she won that for because they don't attribute it to a film. It's just a vibe overall.
This category is so weird because like they have people nominated so long after they should actually be here. Like, what is David Johnson doing here? Right late, you gave that multiple nominations last year. I mean, he's who I would personally want to win, but like he should have been here last year. And like Jerome. He was in Moonlight like 10 years ago, which you nominated in Best Film, and he had a pretty large role in that. They do this every year. There's three Brits in this category. So which one are you going with?
I am going to go with David Johnson. Could totally see it be Marissa Abella, but I mean, Back to Black was so hated. And I feel like everyone's going to be predicting Mikey Madison, but like, fuck, dude, they don't give it to Americans. They don't give it to Aussies. They don't give it to Americans. They don't give it to Canadians. They don't give it to anyone outside of the Brits. So to me, it's between David Johnson and Marissa Abella. I don't know who the other one is. The name is not familiar to me.
So just look at the box office real quick for Back to Black because no one liked this movie. Everyone universally said this was awful. But I mean, it made $16 in the UK or $16 million in the UK. So I guess people saw it. I'm going with David Johnson, but he also just doesn't fit what they normally do. We'll probably get this one wrong. Why did it just be Mikey Madison? Well, that is the conclusion of our BAFTA predictions and an Oscar update on the race. If you made this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Let us know your bold swings because we definitely have some inside this video. But you want to subscribe because we're going to have a reaction video out later this week. And then we have SAG predictions next week. And we're almost to the Oscars. What a fun time.
This has been the Chaos Oscars this year. And I love to see it. I love this type of season so much more than a boring, we know Oppenheimer's winning from July season. So I'm happy to see it and follow along with us for much more content coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. As always, my name's Matt.
My name's Dylan. This has been Fantasy Filmball.